Thank you for everyone that's joining us and viewing us online. So I'll get started. In this session, we're going to be looking at Crosswork Workflow Manager and how it can be consumed by an operations team in a customer's environment. I have some slides, and then I'll hand over to Dimitris for a demo. So first of all, why is this important? Why are, when we look at operations, it's no secret that every customer is different. Every customer or every automation project that we have been involved in will be addressing different use cases. Each project will face its own set of unique challenges, and every customer will have a different set of systems that they will be integrating to. Some are homegrown, some with custom off-the-shelf products, each with their own APIs, different operational processes that are all integrated in multiple ways. And automation projects are generally introduced by our customers to simplify the operations in these complex environments, designed to drive increasing efficiency, increasing productivity, and aim is to realize benefits such as shorter time to market or reducing human errors. However, not all projects, automation projects, always succeed, and many initiatives can fail due to lack of adoption. And this is primarily driven by rejection from the teams who are forced to use these tools. And adoption can depend on many factors. New tools fit into existing ecosystem, or how the new tools fit into the existing ecosystem. Does it require change to existing and well-defined processes, or can it mold seamlessly into these existing processes? Does the impact of this new system or the new tools go beyond the team that are set to benefit? And does this tool aid the operations team in their day-to-day job, or is it introducing an additional burden? So from my perspective, operations teams are critical to the success of any automation initiatives, because if they do not buy into this vision, they do not see a direct benefit to their job, it becomes a barrier to adoption. So what do we need to do to increase the adoption? So one of the key aims should be to ensure that any new tools or processes do not increase the burden on the operations team. An example of this is a user now has to log into two systems, and they have to get information from one system, copied over manually, because the systems cannot be well integrated for whatever reason. So the introduction of these new tools or processes usually means a change to how a user will operate or carry on with their day-to-day tasks. And change is always hard to accept, and change is usually met with resistance. So if the benefits are tangible and well known to the people it's going to affect, we increase the chances of adoption. So how can we do that? How can CWM, or Crosswork Workflow Manager, play a role in all of this? So we've talked a lot about adoption. We've talked about the need to reduce the burden on the operations team and the ability to fit into the existing ecosystem, mold into existing processes. We've mentioned how each customer is different. Some customers would have existing CRM systems that they wish to utilize. They want to leverage the existing investments that they've already made. Others would prefer that the tool comes with its own functional portal. It's self-contained. They don't already have, it's a greenfield environment. They don't want to then have to go and procure another tool just for the operations team to interact with. So with CWM, with Crosswork Workflow Manager, you can define your own workflows that represent the operational processes specific to your environment. And with Crosswork Workflow Manager 1.1 that was released last year, we introduced support for event handling, where we're able to integrate with different brokers that are hosted externally to Crosswork Workflow Managers, such as Kafka or AMQP. And in September, we released Crosswork Workflow Manager 1.2. We introduced Forms Designer and Tasks that allows a workflow developer to design custom forms, enabling an operator to interact with Crosswork Workflow Manager via tasks. Now, these forms and tasks are hosted internally on Crosswork Workflow Manager. So what's the importance of this? So when we talk about externally hosted, We're effectively referring at the ability to integrate with the other tools and applications using an event broker that is externally hosted. So we're expecting, your Kafka bus or your AMQP or RabbitMQ, for example, to be already there, and then we'll be utilizing that. Crosswork Workflow Manager can connect to that, and it enables Workflow Manager to either send or receive events to these external systems. And so if an existing process is well defined, the users are well versed with their existing applications, e.g. a custom portal, a CRM system, collaboration platforms, we can integrate with these systems. The main benefit of this approach is that introducing a new tool such as Workflow Manager into the ecosystem will not be disruptive. Users can continue using the existing applications that they're familiar with, and we can still bring the value of workflow into the ecosystem to drive, the additional use cases that you want to bring. And then on the other side, we're looking at the internally hosted. So there are requirements where customers are wanting a new tool or a platform, but they don't want to integrate with. They don't want their operations teams to have to use another system. The reasons for this could be varied. An example would be that the existing CRM system is it's not cost effective to update, or it's a greenfield, as I mentioned before, and there's no business justification for introducing yet another tool. So with this, in 1.2, we've introduced a drag and drop workflow, drag and drop form designer that allows a workflow developer to create a user form. This can then be integrated into your workflow definitions. And then when the job runs, when you execute these workflows, these forms are rendered as a task during the job execution. And these tasks can then be acted upon by the end user to perform, either things like an approval, like a dry run, or capturing additional information. You wanted to capture an IP address, or you wanted to, capture additional service information, or in the event of error handling, you wanted to, say, okay, what should I do? You want the operator to take, or the end user to take an action to say, yeah, I want to actually retry. I want to actually change some value and then retry, or I want to do a compensation. I want to do a rollback. So with this, you have the flexibility of integrating Workflow Manager into an ecosystem in a way that suits your need and will be beneficial to your end users. And have a look. We'll have a sneak peek at the form's capabilities, and then I'll hand over to Dimitris for the actual demo where you can see some of these things in action. So when we look at the form, so this is a drag and drop form designer. So you would, as a workflow developer or a form designer, you would be presented with a UI screen where you have some basic building blocks that you can drag and drop onto a canvas. So here you can see in the example, there's a text area that's being dropped onto the canvas. And then you are able to provide some properties for this form designer, labels that you will see. You can have different properties on there. You can even have hidden things. You can make sure something has got the initial focus that you will have. You can have a tooltip for that. If you go to the data tab, you can also put the JQ expression queries in there. And this will effectively allow you to pre-populate this form from data from the workflow. So if you had some customer data that's coming in, you can see in the example, there's .input.myCustomerData. And then when the form is rendered at runtime, this data will be pre-populated so the user can see that. And then again, it's up to you. You can make this read-only if it should not be changed. And if it's a field that you wanted to allow, then that could be editable. So, that value could be updated by the user if they required. Here is a list of all the various different elements of the building blocks that you can drag and drop. This also includes, if you look at the rightmost, you've got the data grid as well. So you can also, have complex data structures that's populated. So a list of devices, for example, you can have a check sync where you can, list of devices, and in the form you can display which device are out of sync and what's the diff, and then you can display that to the user, and then you can select if you wanted to do a sync from, as an example. So that's just one example of the use cases that we can enable. So it's a very, very quick introduction, and I wanted to make sure that I leave more time for the actual demo so you can see this in action. So without further ado, I will now hand over to Dimitri, and he can present the demo.
So what I'm going to be showing you today is a demo predominantly around the CrossWorks Workflow Manager, but that also incorporates a number of other tools so we can highlight the integrations that Jay was alluding to earlier. So this is a demo that incorporates a number of those features that facilitate the process of onboarding a new device to a customer's network. The ordering process will be initiated via ServiceNow. You see that on my screen at this point. But in the demo also, we have the CrossWorks Workflow Manager. We have the Network Services Orchestrator that is performing some configurations in the back end. And we make use of WebEx and email for notifications and for guiding the users in the ordering process. So again, in brief, the scenario for this demo is our intent is to deploy a new device in our infrastructure for one of our customers. And we will trigger this actual action from ServiceNow. So an operator will sit at ServiceNow and create a ticket for this new device to commence. Before I go and hit the order, I'll just quickly show you a couple of the accompanying systems that we have. I did mention that we have a mail server. This will be here. I have a client attached to that mail server. This mailbox will be receiving mail messages as the workflow proceeds through its execution. We do have also a WebEx room where we will be getting notifications and we'll be also able to drive some of the changes in our demonstration. I will show you also NSO. NSO will play a part in configuring a device that we'll be bringing on board. I'm showing you at this point of time, there's no entry or a zero-touch provisioning device that will be onboarding using the demo that we're going to go through today. So if I go to CrossWorks Workflow Manager, you can see there's a number of workflows that have been created for the purpose of this demo. Two of them are to interface with the ServiceNow system. We have email notifications, we have WebEx notifications, and we have the process of enrolling the device into NSO and bootstrapping it for it to become part of our network. So we won't instantiate the workflows directly from the Workflow Manager. We'll be doing that from ServiceNow. ServiceNow will trigger the workflow that is required for this provisioning process. What we will be doing is we'll be monitoring the jobs that will be created as an effect of that workflow execution. And we will be interacting with the Workflow Manager as the workflows will be generating some tasks for us. So let's quickly go to ServiceNow, create a new entry. We'll give it an address. These are very basic parameters. We could have had far more than this, device types, etc. The reason here is we just want to illustrate that from a particular action, we can trigger a workflow. So I'm going to submit this order. What happens now is that this order now will communicate with the Workflow Manager. It has already received as a response the corresponding job ID and run ID. Whenever you execute a job within the Workflow Manager, it generates those two unique identifiers. We store them here so we can correlate data at any point in time in the future. So this now has triggered a job within the Workflow Manager. If we go to the Workflow Manager menu, we will see that in the jobs themselves, we have something new running for the ticket number that corresponds to the ticket that we just from the order from ServiceNow. In the event that the operator is not here, he can receive the same information via an email notification. So let's have a look and see if there are any emails for the admin, for the operator. And here we see all the details of that particular order as they were executed on ServiceNow. This was forwarded to the workflow manager. The workflow manager created this email, sent it out to the ops team, so they are aware of that there's a new incoming service order. What that means for the ops teams is that somebody has to return to the workflow manager and look for any tasks that might be pending that might require their attention. And here in the tasks view, we can see that we have a task waiting for us. Let's open it up. And just like Jay mentioned, you can use these forms to interface, to interact with your operators, to present them data so they can preview the data and see what is happening, what's required from them. In this case, this body captures all the information that pertains to that particular order. In this form, we have only a continue button. We could have an accept or reject, so the operator could have exercised some discretion to say that I don't want to proceed with this order, I would reject it. I have a different form that I can show you those actions, but for right now, we're content with the fact that we want to continue with the order. I will be jumping around these systems just to show you how the interactivity takes place. So we did create the order for dev days. The order is pending at this point. If I refresh my table, my system, I should be getting a new value soon. Once I confirm the order, that somebody is taking care of the execution. So I've approved that. I'm continuing with the order. Soon this task will disappear. Again, I will go back to my ServiceNow environment, refresh this, and it will show me that the order is being dispatched. If we look now at the workflows, that has triggered a number of different workflows, and just like any good demo, it had to fail, unfortunately. Luckily, I have one just underneath that you can see here that I will open up a bit. So as part of the order sequence, what happens is the system will send out email notifications. It will update the ServiceNow records, as you have seen that I've shown you now. It will provide update statuses. It will create a map within NSO for a ZDP onboarding of a particular device. Once that process is complete, it will then again return to ServiceNow to update the record that the device has been completed, is alive in the network, and finally send notifications to the operations and the engineering teams. Let me just have a quick look to see whether we can troubleshoot this at this point. We have received a 401 error. I won't spend time on this. Unfortunately, this has failed. I can try calling another one, but I have the impression that it might leave us in the same situation. It's the demo gods. It was working before 10 minutes. Now it doesn't. Let me just quickly go to the forms and show you in a bit more detail what the forms entail and what Jay was showing in his slides. So you can see here that you have the ability to create a number of forms. Let me show you the one that we were looking at earlier, which is the ServiceNow order. Again, it's a very simple form. You can include graphics. You can include a number of text fields that will provide information to the user when this executes. Each and every field of these can be associated with the dynamic data that you have in your execution. So you can dynamically present to your user information as as the workflows execute. Let me show you one that has an accept and reject confirmation, and will also require some input. We can actually run this. This has been presented before in one of these forums, but we can show this one at this point of time. Let me just grab the payload for it. I'm going to just go and instantiate the workflow. So in this case, it is a layer 3 VPN workflow. We wish to create a number of endpoints. This is the actual panel where we control the way that we want to execute this job. So we can do it ad hoc at this point of time, or we can decide to provide a scheduled date and time for it to execute in the future, or if there are types of jobs that require some cadence, we can use the corresponding cron entry. Similarly, we can add tags that are meaningful to this execution. That could be ticket numbers, etc., something that will help us identify this job at any point in the future, and what type of logged debugging we would like this workflow to perform. So running this job will also create a new task that should be waiting for us. Let me refresh. I'm afraid something catastrophic must have happened with this environment. Because it will not accept any of my workflows at this point of time. Let me just try it one more time. And I apologize to everyone for this. Oh, there we go. Okay. So some wrong parameter. So here we have a form that is designed to present to the operator the dry run result of a layer 3 VPN execution. So the operator has the opportunity to look at all the config before it gets applied. They can scroll down, examine the configuration as it's supposed to be assigned to the devices. As part of this execution, there have been dynamic allocations of IP addresses that can be witnessed in the Netbox IPAM manager. Again, we can verify the configuration, whether we like it or not. We can sign, so the forms are bidirectional. You can also retrieve data from the running instance, but you can also provide data back to the running instance, the running job. The signature is one example of that. It will accept the input. In this case, it won't do anything, but it could have been a field that would accept IP addresses or any relevant information. So let's approve this job. Refresh this has been completed. If we go to Netbox and we refresh our prefixes, we should be able to see that we had allocations, successful IP allocations for those devices, and you can see them as per the payload, one for the head office, one for the branch. And Jay, I think I'll stop here since the main workflow unfortunately failed us. and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, we do have a few questions out there for you if you're all set with the demo here. So one of the first things was, is there a way that people can get a hold of a CWM 1.2, any sort of trial license or eval or anything that they can use to start, kicking the tires and starting to understand how they could benefit from it?
Yes. So if you get in touch with the account team, then we will be able to facilitate that. So if you're a customer, please reach out to your account teams and say we would like to trial, and we can definitely enable that.
Okay, great, great. And for the new form and callback state, uh, is it safe to assume that there's examples of it included with CWM for people to use for learning purposes?
So yes, I think in the initial one, the one in the 1.2 that's just gone, there's I think just one example, but we are trying to add more and more examples. But there is also documentation is there as well in the administration guides, in the user guides. So that's also been documented as to what you can do. And then we have got the DevNet as well, the forums as well, so you can ask questions, and we will be more than happy to help if there's things that's not been covered.
Yeah, great, great. Plenty of learning opportunities for people. So, and there also was an ask here, and I don't know if Lou will end up really covering it more in roadmap later, but we'll ask it now as well. But besides form and callback state support, any other interesting new features in Workflow Manager 1.2?
I think the main one is the forms and the callback state, and there were general enhancements as well that were made on some of the UI side of things. So if you looked at the 1.1, the editor was a lot more basic. So in this one, the workflow editor is a bit more advanced. So there have been small updates which which aim to kind of make your life easier when you're designing or developing workflows. So if you can just click on one of the workflows, code view. So here now, before you didn't have the code folding, you didn't have the syntax highlighting. So this is again an example of trying to just make your life easier, where you can see what's going wrong. If there's an issue with your JSON, then this will highlight it very immediately as well. So these are also some of the small features that have been added from the user perspective.
Okay. Okay, great. And definitely, with this being kind of a newer product, there's some good interest out there. But people are looking at, they're at the beginning of their learning curve as they go into learn more about CWM, where they benefit from it, how they could use it in their group. But any best practices on where to start the learning journey for CWM?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if people are aware, but there is a getting started lab that's happening tomorrow as well. So we do have a lab that we can run for you, which will explain what are the basics, how to get started, how to write a workflow, how to create an adapter, how are the various different pieces coming together so you can run your first workflow. So we do have a lab that we can run for you. And again, please, if you're a customer, get in touch with the account team when we can facilitate that. And then beyond that, just like NSO, there is a learning curve. There are different components here. There's the workflows, there's the adapters, there's JQ expressions. But once you get past the initial and you get the familiarity, actually, it can become quite easy to start developing more and more workflows. And it has all the features you need to make it easier, which is, you can create reusable workflows. You can then include them as child workflows. So once you create a library, it should become easier to then start leveraging and getting more value out of it.
Okay, great. And how easy is it to for someone to integrate their network components with Workflow Manager?
Yeah, it really depends upon what the target system is. So we already have a few adapters that we ship with. So NSO is one of them. There is a generic REST. We also have the concept of what we call the XDK, or the Extension Developers Kit, which again applies to both NSO and Swagger, or Open API Spec kind of 3, version 2 or 3 YAML. And what you can do with those is you can point the XDK at your Yang model and say, this is my service. And it will automatically generate an adapter that you can then just use in your workflow. And similarly, if you have a system that has a well-defined API, you can point the XDK to the API, and it will auto-generate the adapter. So, we're trying to simplify the effort required to integrate with these various systems. And the SDK is also available, so you can, if it's a system that the XDK cannot deal with, you can then just go and create your own SDK. Again, there's documentation is there, help is there, and the idea is that we want to empower our customers to go and create these themselves.
Ah, great. So sounds like it's very easy to start the learning journey, get on top of this, make things happen, and focus on the problems you want to solve and not the mechanics of doing it. So,
Yes, and that's exactly, and sorry.
Excellent. Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and that's one of the aims here, is that we want to the features that we're writing is designed to try and make it easy for you to integrate with new things and abstract away the complexity. So that's kind of one of the primary aims for Workflow Manager.
Okay. Excellent. So, okay. Well, we have just a slight minute. I have a couple minor questions that have come in. So on the forms, can people import or export them in some sort of, predefined format, or do they have to enter them in our tools?
So you can design them in the tool, and then you have an import-export ability. You can basically, you'll be able to take the forms, and then we have the APIs available as well. So you can have the APIs and then recreate them in another environment via the APIs.
Okay, great. And for the dry run output, other than capturing it and copying it and pasting it off the screen, is there any other way to capture data from the output from a dry run if you wanted to further inspect it or manipulate it before applying it?
Yeah, so you can, within the workflow itself, we have a very powerful language called JQ that can allow you to manipulate the data as and how you wish. So, within the workflows itself, you could have activities that can do certain amount of manipulation, and then you can pass that on to the form in a different format.